That afternoon, the atmosphere in the Park family home felt warm and cozy. The scent of freshly baked cookies wafted from the kitchen, and the soft glow of the setting sun streamed through the living room windows. Suddenly, when the doorbell rang, Yin dashed out of her room, yelling as she ran. "I'll get it," she shouted from upstairs. Her steps hurried as she rushed down the stairs. "Yin, careful, watch out," her mother called from the kitchen, but it was too late. Yin nearly slipped on the last step. Luckily, she landed perfectly in front of the door. She caught her breath quickly, then opened it with a smile far too bright for that time of day. "Oh, Jungkook," she exclaimed with an obviously fake tone of surprise. Jungkook stood at the door, wearing a semi-casual outfit, neat and fragrant. He muttered flatly. "Is your brother home?" Yin put on a thinking face, then lightly slapped her forehead. "I think he's in the bathroom. Do you want to wait? Or maybe I could entertain you while you wait." "Entertain me?" Jungkook raised an eyebrow. "No need. I just want to talk to Jaehyun for a bit." But Yin had already walked into the living room, turning around with a playful smile. "Geez, don't you miss me even a little? I got all dressed up today, you know. Look, wearing that lip tint you said you liked, I mean, the one guys usually like." Jungkook followed her inside and sat on the couch. "You put on lip tint just to keep me company while I wait for Jaehyun?" he asked, sounding unamused, but the corner of his lips twitched upward slightly. Yin sat on the couch across from him, crossing her legs gracefully, and replied confidently, "Of course. I can't greet a special guest like you with a bare face. That'd be embarrassing. And yet you walk around the house every day in bunny pajamas and a mud mask, like a kid playing spa day." "Jungkook," Yin shrieked, throwing a pillow at him. "Don't expose people's secrets." Jungkook easily caught the pillow and shook his head with a small laugh. "You're still such a kid, Yin." "I'm 21 already, okay?" Yin huffed, pouting. "You're just too old to realize I've grown up." "So now I'm old, huh?" Jungkook raised an eyebrow. "That's not what I meant. What I'm saying is, I'm old enough to be approached now. You can't keep treating me like a baby forever. I can even make coffee by myself now. You made me coffee with salt that one time." That was an accident. I was sleepy." Jungkook burst out laughing, finally unable to hold it in. "Oh man, Yin, you're like an anime character." Yin blushed but tried to play it cool. She scooted closer and sat beside him. "But a cute anime, right?" Jungkook turned to her and smiled, then flicked her forehead gently. "Super cute. But this anime character needs to study more, okay?" Yin let out a long sigh. "We just had a sweet moment, and now you're ruining it with homework. You really are the enemy of romance. You know that?" Jungkook now held back his laughter, his large hand gently ruffling Yin's hair. There. You're still too young to be thinking about romance. Focus on your dreams first." Yin fell silent, glaring at him with frustration. How annoying. Jungkook never took her feelings seriously. A few days later. That night, the rain had been pouring non-stop since the afternoon. The sky was pitch black, as if it had no intention of stopping its tears. Flashes of lightning occasionally split the sky, followed by thunder that rattled the chest. Park Yin was driving cautiously, both hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Her windshield wipers were working hard to clear the rain that kept lashing against the glass. The digital clock on the dashboard read 10:47 p.m. She let out a long sigh. Too late. She had just left campus after a group project meeting that went far longer than planned. One of the group members had insisted they finish the presentation that night, and since it would be graded directly by the supervisor the next day, Yin had no choice. But it seemed the universe had decided to toy with her that night. After the second turn on Hannam Road, her car suddenly swerved. The steering wheel pulled heavily to one side. In a panic, Yin turned on the hazard lights and pulled over to the side of the empty road. "Don't tell me," she muttered anxiously. She clutched her phone tightly but didn't call anyone right away. The rain outside was too heavy, but her worry outweighed her fear. Quickly, she grabbed a small umbrella from the back seat and opened the car door. As soon as her foot hit the asphalt, a puddle soaked her shoes and ankles. Cold air pierced through the thin jacket she was wearing. Her hair began to stick to her face as the wind whipped her flimsy umbrella, nearly flipping it inside out. She walked to the back of the car and crouched down to check the tire, only to feel like crying when she saw that the right rear tire was completely flat. "Oh my God," she whispered, nearly hopeless. No repair shops, no streetlights, no cars passing by. Even her ride-hailing apps weren't responding. The rain must have convinced everyone to stay indoors, everyone except her, left to suffer the bad luck of this night. Shivering, she got back into the car, closing the door with trembling hands. Her umbrella was soaked, dripping water onto the seat. She stared at her phone with teary eyes, not from the rain, but from frustration. Her parents were currently abroad. Her older brother, Jaehyun, had left for Bizen 2 days ago for a business trip. She bit her lower lip. Her fingers hovered over the contacts she relied on most. The only person she could turn to right now, her brother, even if he was far away. The call connected. "Hello?" Her brother's voice came through. "Brother." Yin's voice immediately shook. I'm on the road, and my car swerved. The tire's flat. It's raining really hard. I'm alone. I don't know what to do." "Where are you?" Jaehyun's voice rose, panicked. "On Hanam Road, near the small bridge. It's really quiet, brother. I'm soaked, and I'm scared." "Yin, listen to me carefully." Jaehyun sounded like he was typing quickly. "I can't come right now. I'm still in Bizen. But I know someone who can. I'll ask Jungkook to go. His apartment's nearby. Okay? Stay in the car, lock the doors, and don't go outside again." Yin nodded quickly, even though she knew her brother couldn't see. Okay. After the call ended, Yin rested her head on the steering wheel. A small sob finally escaped her trembling lips. She hadn't even eaten dinner yet. She just wanted to go home. But tonight, everything felt terrifying. Her only hope now was the name her brother had mentioned, Jungkook. The guy who always seemed calm, who always acted indifferent toward her feelings. But tonight, she could only hope he would come. The rain continued tapping against Jungkook's apartment window with an unrelenting rhythm. In the living room, the only sound came from the softly playing television, a movie he had put on but was no longer paying attention to. Jungkook sat on the sofa wearing a gray hoodie and sweatpants, one hand holding the remote, the other gripping a mug of hot tea. A night like this should have been the perfect time to unwind, but the sudden ring of his phone made him quickly turn his head. Jaehyun's name lit up on the screen. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. It was late, and for Jaehyun, this wasn't a typical hour for a casual call. "Hey bro," he answered casually, leaning back against the sofa. But Jaehyun's voice on the other end was far from relaxed. "Jungkook, you're at your apartment, right?" "Yeah, why?" Jungkook immediately sat up straighter. "I need your help, right now." "Wait, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "Not me, Yin." For some reason, Jungkook's heartbeat picked up slightly. She was on her way home from campus. Said her car tire went flat. It's storming. She's alone on Hanam Road, near the bridge. No one can get her. My parents are overseas, and I'm in Bizen. Jungkook stood up immediately, setting his mug down on the table, not caring that a bit of tea spilled over the edge. "She's alone there right now." "Yeah, I just called her." Her voice was shaking. "I'm really worried, Jungkook. Can you go?" Without a second thought, Jungkook answered firmly, "I'm heading out now." "Please, just stay with her. You can even bring her back to your place. It's closer from there anyway. It's still too far if you try to take her to our house." She said, "It's still pouring hard, and I'm scared something might happen on the way. I'm counting on you." "Don't worry, I've got it." Jungkook ended the call, hurried to his room, swapped his sweatpants for jeans, grabbed his jacket, and the large umbrella hanging behind the door. Without hesitation, he snatched his car keys and rushed out. Inside the elevator descending to the basement, Jungkook adjusted his hoodie and tried to stay calm, but his mind was already filled with thoughts of Yin. As soon as the basement doors opened, Jungkook jogged toward his car. He started the engine, and inside the car, speeding through the stormy night, Jungkook had only one thought. "Please don't cry, Yin. I'm almost there." His headlights cut through the rainy fog, pushing back the darkness that clung to the quiet road. Raindrops created an unbroken curtain on the windshield, but his gaze remained sharp. As he passed the bend near the bridge, he finally spotted a small car parked by the roadside, its hazard lights blinking faintly. Jungkook quickly steered to the side and stopped his car right behind it. As soon as the engine was off, he took a deep breath, then opened the door and lifted a large umbrella. Heavy rain pelted his umbrella as he walked briskly toward Yin's car. He saw her hunched behind the wheel, arms wrapped around herself. Her jacket was soaked, and her hair clung damply to her face. Even through the window, Jungkook could see her shoulders trembling. Without hesitation, he knocked on the glass. Yin slowly turned her head. When she saw Jungkook's face behind the umbrella, her eyes widened in surprise. Her red, tear-streaked eyes stared at him. She lowered the window halfway, and the sound of rain instantly filled the car. "Jungkook." Jungkook opened her door immediately. "Come on, get into my car. You're soaking wet." Now, Yin." His tone left no room for argument. Yin finally stepped out, and Jungkook instinctively lowered the umbrella to cover her, then quickly guided her toward his car. Once the door was shut and Yin was seated in the passenger seat, Jungkook turned on the heater. He glanced at Yin, who was hugging herself, shivering from the cold. "Your brother called me earlier. He asked me to pick you up," Jungkook muttered, reaching into the back seat for a spare jacket. "Here, put this on." Yin took it slowly, her voice small. "Thanks, Jungkook." Jungkook turned to her, his gaze lingering. "Why didn't you say anything earlier? If you were scared, if you didn't know what to do, you could have called me. Don't just sit there trying to endure it all alone." His voice wasn't cold anymore. No sarcasm, no teasing, just the voice of someone who truly cared. And for the first time that night, Yin looked down and smiled faintly. "I thought you'd just ignore me and tell me to walk home." Jungkook sighed and shook his head slightly. "Hey, I might act indifferent in certain situations, but not like this. No way I'd ever leave you like that." The apartment door opened, and a wave of warmth greeted Yin, who was still shivering. She stepped in slowly, dragging her feet into the room. The soft yellow lights gave the space a cozy feel, a stark contrast to the cold rain outside. Jungkook followed behind her, taking off his jacket and hanging it on the rack. He glanced toward Yin, who stood awkwardly in the middle of his living room, her clothes soaked, her hair still dripping wet. "Go take a shower," Jungkook said suddenly. "Use the bathroom in my room. The hot water's more stable there." Yin turned quickly. In your room?" Jungkook nodded casually. "Yeah, so you don't get even colder." "But I didn't bring any clothes. Just pick something from my closet. Grab whatever feels comfortable." Yin's eyes widened. "You're letting me choose myself?" Jungkook nodded again as he walked toward the kitchen. "I'm gonna make some soup. Take a shower, then eat something before you sleep, okay?" "Jungkook," Yin called softly. You're being really nice tonight." Jungkook glanced back, holding back a small smile. "I'm always nice. You're just usually too dramatic to notice." Yin scoffed, the smile on her lips vanishing instantly. Without another word, she quickly walked toward Jungkook's room. Finally, Yin stepped into Jungkook's bedroom. The door closed softly behind her, and her heart immediately began to race faster. It was her first time being alone in Jungkook's room, a space she had only imagined until now. Without wasting any time, she headed straight to the bathroom. Warm water cascaded over her body, washing away the chill and dampness that had clung to her all night. Her breath felt lighter, and her body began to relax. As she turned to a small shelf in the corner of the bathroom, she saw several clean bathrobes neatly folded, Jungkook's. She grabbed one and slipped it on without hesitation. The bathrobe was a bit oversized, but felt warm and comfortable against her skin. After that, she slowly opened the bathroom door and walked toward Jungkook's wardrobe. Her hand paused slightly at the handle, nervousness and curiosity mixing within her. She glanced at the row of neatly hung clothes, mostly hoodies, t-shirts, and button-up shirts, but then her eyes landed on a single cream-colored shirt, made of rayon viscose, her favorite fabric. Plain, lightweight, and incredibly soft against the skin. She hugged the shirt to her chest for a moment before bringing it back into the bathroom. She felt safer changing there. Fortunately, her undergarments weren't wet, so she could still wear them. She then slipped on the shirt. It was clearly too big. Its long sleeves hung past her hands and had to be folded, and the hem almost completely covered her thighs. With a slightly trembling breath, she stepped out of the bathroom. Jungkook, who was sitting on the couch in the living room scrolling through his phone, looked up when he heard the door open. His gaze immediately landed on Yin, and in 1 second, his breath caught. Standing before him was no longer the loud girl who always bugged him with her drama and bright lip tint, but a young woman, wearing an oversized thin shirt, with damp hair falling beautifully on her shoulders, and eyes that looked a little nervous but soft as they met his. For a moment, Jungkook couldn't move. Damn, that was the only word that echoed in his head. He knew it wasn't the right time, but his mind couldn't stop the naughty images that suddenly popped up. He quickly bit his lip and looked away. "All done with your shower?" he asked, trying to sound casual, though his voice came out a little husky. Yin nodded softly. "Yeah, thanks. The shirt's really comfortable. I picked it because this fabric is my favorite." "That's good," Jungkook replied shortly, pretending to focus back on his phone, though his heart was a mess. Yin walked slowly toward the kitchen in the corner of the room, trying to keep her steps steady, even though Jungkook's oversized shirt swayed with every movement, revealing a hint of her thighs each time she walked. Jungkook glanced for a moment and instantly held his breath, quickly looking down again and pretending to open his messaging app, though his eyes weren't focused on reading anything. "Can I help with anything?" Yin asked, her voice soft and a little awkward. "Is the soup done?" Jungkook stood up from the couch and walked to the kitchen, intentionally putting some distance between them. "Almost ready, just needs a little more time." Yin simply nodded, standing awkwardly near the table. As she watched Jungkook's back while he stirred the soup, she bit her lip. Somehow, tonight felt different. The warm atmosphere of the apartment, the sound of rain outside, the smell of food from the kitchen, and the presence of that man who had always treated her like a kid, were now looking at her in a completely different way. Jungkook placed the spoon on top of the bowl and turned around. "Sit down, or it'll get cold. I'll bring the soup." Yin obeyed, sitting on the dining chair and tucking her damp hair behind her ear. When Jungkook placed the bowl of hot soup in front of her, the scent of the broth instantly spread, making her stomach, empty since the afternoon, respond immediately. "Eat slowly," Jungkook said softly as he sat across from her. "You were trembling so badly earlier. I thought you were going to faint in the car." Yin gave a small smile. "I thought so too, but you came just in time. Thank you." "Jungkook, really?" Their eyes met for a moment. Jungkook didn't reply right away. He simply looked into her eyes. Then he cleared his throat quietly and looked away. "After this, go to sleep. You'll sleep in my bedroom. Not on the couch." "No, you'll catch a cold on the couch." Yin looked at him again, trying to read his mind. "If I sleep in your room, then where will you sleep?" "I can sleep on the couch. It's not a big deal." "But this is your place. Isn't the other bedroom available?" "I brought you here, so I'm responsible. That other room doesn't have a bed. I turned it into my workspace," Jungkook answered calmly, though inside he was struggling not to let his eyes linger on Yin for too long. That shirt, the scent of her damp hair, the way she sat with her knees pressed together while occasionally sneaking glances at him. It was all driving him to the edge. But Jungkook knew, not tonight, not when Yin had just been scared and needed to feel safe. He let out a deep breath and turned off the stove. "Eat plenty. The soup won't taste good if it gets cold." Yin nodded slowly, offering a faint smile. "Aye aye, Captain." But just as Jungkook was about to walk away, Yin instinctively held onto his arm. "Wait, you're not eating? I don't want to eat alone. Will you stay with me?" Jungkook paused for a moment when he felt Yin's hand touch his arm. It was a light touch, but enough to make his heartbeat slightly irregular. He turned to look at her slowly. Yin's gaze was soft, slightly awkward, but full of hope. "I'm not forcing you," Yin said quickly, almost pulling her hand back. "I just don't want to eat alone." Jungkook stared at her for a few seconds, then finally gave a small nod. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll join you." He sat back down in his chair, picked up a spoon and bowl, and started ladling soup into his own bowl. Yin took her first spoonful. "It's good," she said with a smile. "So warm, like a hug." Jungkook chuckled softly. "I just made something simple, but I'm glad you like it." They ate in silence for a while, accompanied only by the sound of the rain still falling outside. Strangely, the quiet made the atmosphere feel even more comfortable. No pressure, no expectations. Yin glanced at Jungkook, who was now eating calmly across from her. "Are you always like this?" "Like what?" "Calm, mature. You didn't even panic when picking me up earlier, while I was totally a mess." Jungkook leaned back on his chair and looked at her deeply. "That's because you needed someone to stay calm. If I panicked too, we could have ended up in real danger." Yin fell silent again. Once more, her heart felt warm. She didn't know why, but tonight, she truly felt special in front of him. After dinner was over, Yin quickly stood up and grabbed both of their bowls and plates. Without waiting for any cue from Jungkook, she brought them to the kitchen sink and started washing them. The soft sound of running water and clinking dishes blended with the quiet rain still falling outside. Jungkook watched her from the dining table for a moment, then slowly stood up and walked toward her from behind. "Let me help," he said softly, standing right behind Yin. But Yin glanced over her shoulder and shook her head. "No need, I got it. You already cooked, so let me clean up." Jungkook raised his hands in surrender and stayed where he was, but slowly, his arms moved and wrapped around Yin's waist, hugging her from behind. Yin gasped slightly, her breath catching, but she didn't resist. Instead, she stood still, feeling Jungkook's heartbeat pressing against her back. The silence between them felt intense, warm, yet awkward. "You," Yin said softly, smiling slightly. "You always said I was just a kid, but now you're hugging me like this?" Jungkook chuckled, his face brushing against her damp hair. Sorry, I guess. I've finally realized you're not a kid anymore. Yin paused, her hands from washing, rinsed them, and slowly turned to face him. Their eyes met at a very close distance. If you don't see me as a little kid anymore, she said softly, locking eyes with him, then that means you can accept my love now, right? Jungkook gazed at Yin's face for a long moment, the face he had always known as his best friend's little sister, cheerful, innocent, and full of laughter. But tonight, it looked different. Her eyes were filled with courage and sincerity. Jungkook smiled gently. I accept it, he finally said, his voice low yet warm. And, I'm sorry, he added quietly. Sorry it took me this long to return your feelings. Yin frowned slightly, now truly curious. Why only now? Jungkook took a deep breath. Because all this time, I only saw your childish, spoiled side. I thought you weren't mature enough to understand feelings like this. I figured maybe you were just confused, couldn't tell the difference between liking, admiration, or love. So I felt like you just weren't ready. Yin was silent, lips pursed in a half pout of annoyance, curiosity, and also relief. But tonight, Jungkook continued, I saw a different side of you. Turns out you really have grown up, and that made me realize you're not a little girl anymore. He gently caressed her cheek with his thumb. I believe you're smart enough now to understand your own feelings. Yin gave a small smile, then playfully pouted. So now you believe in my feelings? Jungkook looked deep into her eyes. Yes, I believe you. I'm sorry for making you wait. And without waiting any longer, he kissed Yin on the lips. The kiss started gently, warm, like an unspoken promise. But as Yin returned it with emotion, the kiss deepened, becoming more demanding. His hand moved to her back, pulling her closer as if wanting to become one. Their breaths grew heavy, their bodies wrapped in each other's arms like they never wanted to part again. The room grew warmer despite the rain outside, and Jungkook almost lost control. But just as his hand began to wander too far, he stopped himself. Slowly, he pulled away from the kiss, resting his forehead against hers, closing his eyes as he took a deep breath. Sorry, he whispered. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm supposed to protect you, not. Yin looked at him in confusion. Why? If Jaehyun finds out, I might get killed next time we meet, Jungkook said with a mischievous smile. He entrusted you to me, not to mess you up. Yin cupped his cheek. You didn't mess me up. You just returned my feelings. Jungkook hugged her again, this time more calmly. I'll protect you, but this time, as someone who loves you. They now stared into each other's eyes in silence. Their breaths were still a bit ragged, but not just because of the kiss. It was from the long-held feelings that had finally been answered tonight. Jungkook looked at Yin with soft eyes. His fingers still touched the side of her face, as if unwilling to let go just yet. It's late, he said softly, his voice low but full of warmth. Let's get some sleep. You need to rest. Yin nodded slowly, still looking into Jungkook's eyes before finally lowering her gaze and offering a small smile. She understood that Jungkook wasn't just telling her to go to sleep. It was his gentle way of ending a moment that could all too easily make them lose control. Jungkook took a deep breath, then stepped away and began pulling out extra blankets and pillows from the cupboard. Yin helped him, walking over to the sofa and placing them there. This couch is too narrow for you, Yin mumbled as she fluffed the pillow. It's fine, as long as you sleep well, Jungkook replied calmly. Yin looked at him for a moment, then spoke again. If you want to sleep in the bedroom instead, it's okay, I trust you. Jungkook sighed, then sat at the edge of the sofa and looked at her with a small laugh. You're still really innocent, aren't you? The problem is, I don't trust myself sleeping next to you on the same bed, he said, gazing at her softly. Sleeping beside the girl I just kissed, the one I'm so crazy about. You think I'd be able to sleep soundly? Yin froze for a second, then blushed instantly. She bit her lower lip beyond embarrassed. Oh, right, sorry, she mumbled quickly, then stood and took a few steps back. I'll head to bed then. Sleep well, baby, he said, his voice sincere and gentle now. Yin looked at him for a moment, then gave him a sweet smile before finally going into the bedroom. Once the door closed, Jungkook leaned his head back against the couch and stared at the ceiling with a long sigh. Damn, that was way too close, he whispered. If Jaehyun finds out, I'm dead meat.